Charles, you're looking incredibly sharp there
Oh,
in the
thank you.
Charles Ortel Residential Library. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm feeling good despite having been out to quite a party last night with some new friends who, interestingly, as the only American at most events, the subject, I frequently find myself explaining what's going on, trying to explain what's going on in the country. These are people, I actually knew most of them, but who were pro-Trump, pro the concept of Trump getting back into power, and to a person, they're all like, "What the hell is he doing now? What is he doing with this Epstein thing?" Malaysia, I guess, is the subject of a tariff letter, so they don't like that, and they don't like the idea of America getting more involved in Ukraine. And I can't defend what Trump is doing now. I mean, to me, he's falling right into the same traps that he fell in the first, and maybe he was intentionally falling into them the first time. But he has a shitty attorney general, he has a shitty FBI, he hasn't cleaned out. He's not attacking the issues that animated his base to vote for him again. Indeed,
He's
he's
going
now lecturing
opposite.
us, saying, "Yeah,
He's
he's
going
saying,
against him.
nothing to see here on Epstein. What are you talking about?"
Ridiculous.
It's just I've talked to many people around the world about this, and to a person, they're all saying, "What's wrong with the guy? Has he lost his marbles?" Um, and then you look at we were doing a little bit of this offline yesterday, but you look at Susie Wiles, and she's an enormously powerful person as chief of staff, the first female chief of staff for an American president. You look into her background; she's a lobbyist. She's a political operative. She worked for Yeb. She's had a falling out with DeSantis. She worked for Rick Scott, and then she worked for this thing called Ballard Partners, which is a lobbying firm. Her clients were Google and TikTok. And then she hired Pam Bondi and paid Pam Bondi $1 million plus a year as a partner. You can't have that. I mean, that's I don't know if it's a conflict of interest, but it's just not what the people who went to the rallies, who braved the lines to get into the rallies, who wore the MAGA gear, who took the shit from all the wokesters and are taking the shit from them now. This is not what we voted for. It is, and Trump. Trump is not stupid when it comes to business. I mean, he got in trouble in the late '80s, early '90s, nearly lost all his money, but then he made a huge comeback, and I respect that. He's not stupid, and I doubt Trump has ever paid $165 million in financial advisory fees to somebody. But there's no way you could justify Leon Black paying Jeffrey Epstein that kind of money. You'd have a hard time justifying that if it were, I don't know, General Motors paying that to Goldman Sachs, not for money or for a deal, but for just providing financial advice. What financial advice was that? I stole all the gold in Fort Knox, and you can have a tenth of it if you pay me $165 million in cash. I mean, it's crazy, and it doesn't pass the smell test. And Kash Patel and Dan Bongino I don't know that they are, but they may be good managers. They may be good investigators, but they don't know jack shit about finance. And it's obvious that Jeffrey Epstein was being compensated for shutting up, to put it politely, or worse, that he was blackmailing people. And you don't go. I mean, you started companies from scratch. I started companies. I started a small investment bank. It's very, very tough. You can be a combination of Buddha, Muhammad, and Jesus Christ, and as one person, you are not going to build up $1 billion in wealth, these islands and mansions and all this kind of stuff, because you have some good ideas about finance. That is not the way life works. And so shame on Trump for going out on Truth Social, which he shouldn't be on in the first place, but and telling us to shut up and go away about Epstein. No, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
You know,
People are upset. I mean, what do you think, Charles? We're 1 year since the assassination attempt. Is he being threatened? Something like that?
I don't know. I mean, I would hope that once you got to be president of the United States, I think the swamp certainly can intimidate a senator, a governor, a mayor, a representative. But once you get to be the president, you can call, the Marines out on somebody if you need to. So I would hope that the presidents, or that Trump anyway, is impervious to blackmail. I think if you're Bill Clinton, you were controlled from the moment you became Attorney General of the state, if not earlier, because he couldn't stop surrendering to his desires, and he's an obvious target for blackmail. Perhaps a willing participant.
This is the comment here, Charles. So this is from yesterday. He's saying, what's going on? Pam Bondi's doing great. 37,000 likes, 42.9 thousand comments. People were pissed.
That's called being ratioed, right?
I think
on his own site. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the point is, everybody understands, myself included, the Wall Street that I left in 1991, when I was working for Dillon Reed, it doesn't exist anymore. I mean, it's a rigged system. We saw in GE, Jack Welch died a billionaire, mostly from GE stock. And under his tenure, yes, the stock price went up a dramatic multiple, and he certainly deserves, quote, credit for that. But he did a lot of that by manipulating the earnings of GE and I would argue committing fraud at General Electric Capital, which, by the way, doesn't exist anymore. When I called it out, it was a AAA rated entity, and the total value of GE approached $1 trillion when I said it was worthless. The stock was trading at 40. They asked me on Yahoo Finance, what was my target price for GE? And I said $2 a share. And that really sent that was a show that got watched, and it sent shockwaves around the world. What is this guy? He's a nut. And so the editor of TheStreet.com, wrote some article attempting to crush me. And I said to him, it's really nice of you to write this article and not even talk to me to get my views. What about giving me a chance to respond to your criticism? And he said, okay, fine. So I wrote a piece criticizing him that got 100,000 likes in 24 hours. But the point is that of all that is that Wall Street has not been reformed. The people who ripped the system off, are billionaires flying around in private jets, advocating for Zoran Mondami and climate change and bullshit. The politicians who looked the other way and enabled the regulatory failure, the regulatory capture, they're with Elizabeth Warren and B. Rock Obamunist, at Martha's Vineyard in August. Nothing's been done about all this. And now, Trump has, I hope he understands that he has like days to fix this. Because if he doesn't course correct here, I think the House majority is approaching, it might be as low as 1 now. I mean, it's very, very tight in the House. And the Senate, there's a little bit more leeway, but he cannot ram legislation through. And the other side wants the commercial for 2026 that Republicans don't know how to govern. So, this is not a good place to be. Pam Bondi needs to go. Laura Loomer's right. And, Trump could basically be a lame duck by the end of the week. Because, if he keeps this up, if he disappointed me in 2016, right after he won, when people, he campaigned on saying the Clinton Foundation is a grotesque fraud. He didn't say it that way, but that's what I was saying. And he wins, and somebody says, are you going to prosecute Hillary Clinton for charity fraud? And he said, oh, no, we don't do that in our system. And look what happened to him. His administration arguably was dead on arrival. With William Jefferson Sessions, what an idiot that guy is, an ass clown. And then Barr is
Beauregard Sessions.
Whatever he was. Yeah, I think you're right. He was
Beauregard. Yeah.
Beauregard. Yeah, but yeah, this is not good. And I guess I sort of remember that Wiles was a lobbyist, but lobbyists are among the most cynical people on earth. They get paid to do these gigantic bills where you can slip all kinds of crap in. Nobody understands what's in the bill anyway before they vote for it, thanks to Nancy Pelosi.
There's even worse things in here, Charles. Business Roundtable.
Yeah.
British American Tobacco.
Yeah.
Booz Allen Hamilton.
Yeah, TikTok. I think she was representing. I mean,
you
shouldn't have
pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, and the fact that the Attorney General was a partner with the Chief of Staff. I mean, that's horrible. You shouldn't have those type of business linkages in an administration. The Chief of Staff is supposed to be the zealot guardian of the president's schedule. The Chief of Staff is, I believe it's the Deputy Chief of Staff who actually makes the decisions and recommends them to the Chief of Staff. But anyway, that team determines who Trump gets to see. And Trump is impulsive, and he's, doesn't sleep much, and he's up till 3 a.m. or whatever, back up at 7 a.m. and doing all kinds of stuff. He's somebody who needs, to run an enterprise as vast as the White House, the executive branch, with all the myriad interests inside and outside the country that he must attend to. That's a big job to have a lobbyist and an AG. I mean, Pam Bondi, sometimes, fake blondes, or I don't know if she's really blonde or not, but people dye their hair blonde. And if she's fairly good looking, sometimes your reaction, oh, that's just a Fox News blonde. She can't be that smart. Maybe she's smart. I don't know. But, I mean, to spend all her time in the early days of her tenure as AG on Fox News and different shows, and just, a flagrant fail on the Epstein file. I have the file. I have the client list. I'm going to release it. Bring in some influencers, show them, stuff that's already out in the public domain. And now this. I mean, the Attorney General of the United States of America should be somebody that every cartel member in Mexico is terrified of. Don't tell me that the cartel members are terrified of Pam Bondi. Just don't even try. And she's thinking, I guess, about her next payday after she leaves being Attorney General, maybe going back and being a lobbyist, making millions of dollars a year again. That's not who we need. We need Sheriff Buford Pusser, or whatever that guy's name is, of Walking Tall. That's the kind of person we need in there, right? Yeah, shows up the first day in an office with a 6-foot bat, and then anyway.
Well, no, you're right. I mean, I'm just saying everybody is saying, oh, well, give them time or whatever. We're 6 months in, and it's just been nothing but
you're out of time.
Stumbling, right? Veronica raises the good point that she screwed George Zimmerman.
Absolutely.
The public story is she caved to public pressure, but the whole Trayvon Martin case, I don't know, right. Charles, it's not looking good.
Again, with Trump, though, we've been through this in the last several weeks. He's going to blow up the world with Iran, and then Iran goes, whoops, no. So maybe he'll pull this rabbit out of the hat. And people do say about Trump that just when it looks like he's going to lose is when he wins bigly. So maybe we can hope for that. But you're back in, Q territory there.
Right. Trust the plan. He's announced some kind of, he's going to make a speech about Russia, and here's Zelensky threatening long-range strikes into Russia. That doesn't sound good at all.
It doesn't sound good at all to me either. And, he had the collection of boneheads. I mean, when Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin, did their buddy travel movies, Jerry Lewis was supposedly the dumb one in all those movies. I mean, in Blumenthal and Graham, you have 2 Jerry Lewis characters. I mean, a stolen valor idiot in Blumenthal, whose only claim to fame is that he married a very rich woman and bought his way into the Senate. And Lindsey Graham, I spent, 2 hours seated across from him at a small dinner, in a small gathering in a conference room in New York. He was hammered. He was hammered at 6:30 p.m. when we walked in, and at the very end of this dinner, it was Morgan Ortagus was the speaker. She was then in the State Department or something, or going into the State Department. And she was giving her views about what's going to happen. And he said, well, I suppose at the end, since I'm here, I probably should take a few questions. He's sloshed. And so people ask him a few questions. I was wearing my Butthurt Frauds hat the whole time, sitting right opposite him, And he said, what's with the hat? And I said, Hillary Clinton, when are you going to prosecute her?
You're such an idiot.
And,
was it? He's like, which one are you talking about? Which frauds? I want to make sure I'm not in on them.
And at the very end of it, he drunkenly pounds the table and he says, I've just got one final thought. Bomb, 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 bomb Iran. We all looked at him like, man, oh man, I was thinking, you need to drink a lot less. I mean, and that guy has enormous power in the Senate. When you're a chairman of a committee, in the majority, you decide what that committee will look at. And you can
BBC is reporting that the Iranian president was injured in Israeli strikes. I thought they have a ceasefire. Why is Israel striking and injuring the president?
Which president? That's the one that just sat down with Tucker?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe. This is Masood
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's him.
Wow. So the injuring the president seems bad. Oh, the other thing you just reminded me of, Tucker was running his mouth about Bill Ackman. And Bill Ackman, that dude's able to write a lot quite quickly. He wrote a response on X basically telling Tucker to shove it.
What was he criticizing Ackman about?
He said that, there's people who have no talent and do nothing who become billionaires, and then he specifically mentioned Bill Ackman.
That's not fair. That is
right.
Not fair.
It was like a kind of an asshole statement. So he pinned this comment here. Oh, Laura, maybe he's responding to Laura. Yeah. Tucker Carlson went on a rant yesterday at TPUSA, suggested that I was in Jeffrey Epstein's constellation of people who've been getting away with scams.
Yeah, that's not
get $9 billion.
Well, Bill Ackman, first of all, is from a very rich real estate family, but he's also very shrewd.
In detail here, his MBA and how he started his Pershing Square and all those different funds. But I mean, I'm telling you, Tucker was way, way out of line. He's hawking chewing tobacco on a podcast. He shouldn't be saying stuff like this.
Yeah, I mean, Tucker was very nice to me in 2016. He hosted this conference in late May, early June, of about 30 investigative journalists, including me and some other people, to go over the Clinton Foundation and stuff. And I spent, hours with him. And he's in real life, he's very glib. He's very good on his feet. But he will admit to you that he's not a numbers guy. Like most journalists, he's not. And to say that Bill Ackman, was in the same constellation as Jeffrey Epstein is the same, I suppose, as saying, we're all descended from Adam and Eve. I mean,
well, because his wife got some grant from MIT, but Bill Ackman explains it as well, that the head of MIT had some meeting, told the wife to go there. Jeffrey Epstein was there. It was before anybody knew who he was.
Right.
He liked the presentation, gave her $125,000, and she's doing whatever research she's doing at MIT. It's reasonable enough. I mean, I was pointing out how Tucker Carlson stole my footage, cropped out my logo, doesn't mention me at all, and he did this all to basically defend Alan Dershowitz right at the time that this whole thing was becoming such a big deal. And Fox News, I couldn't find this today, but Fox News also published this ridiculous animated cartoon where they had live action Dershowitz with animated Fox News. I was like, what the hell is this? I've never seen anything like it. I wish I could find it because I couldn't understand it when I first saw it years ago.
So in Harvard Law School, in the Harvard Law School arena, there are various tenured professorships of law. And, unless you're Elizabeth Warren and pretend you're an Indian, it's tough to get a tenured professorship of law. And Dersh had when he was, at a young age, he had the most cherished tenure professorship. So from that podium, you in your private life, you can get all kinds of legal cases, you can write books, you can do speeches, et cetera. So he's been milking that for 60 years almost. And the deep state understands that if you've got a challenging issue to deal with, you bring out Dersh to take the other side of the coin. And even if your criticism of Dersh has weight, the average lazy thinking human being, and most of us are quite lazy, will say, all right, Jason's got a good point. Did he go to law school? No. Did he teach at Harvard? No. Did he have so I got to, maybe Jason's right, but I'll listen to Dersh before I listen to Jason, or I'll listen to Dersh before I listen to Charles. Yeah. Similarly, when I was attacking the Clinton Foundation, the guy who got Trump's tax returns, who's a douchebag, but he's a Pulitzer Prize winning or whatever he is journalist. I got him on the phone and I started talking to him about the foundation, and he said, "Well, you're not an accountant." And I didn't. I was in my polite mode. I said, "Well, you're not intelligent. You don't have to be an accountant."
You didn't say that to him, did you?
I should have, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And he ended up hanging up the phone on me rather than engaging. He's the same guy, who fell on his sword to get Trump's tax returns to leak them to Rachel Madcow. I think
I know that guy. I think I saw him on there. Well, yeah. He's not ethical either. So,
right.
Yeah,
right.
That's what I mean. Dersh, the Ninth Circuit agreed with me. That whole argument that I had with Dersh was basically, even if you're right about Jacobson v. Massachusetts, this is not a vaccine that we're talking about. It's a medical treatment, so it doesn't apply. And he was like, oh.
Right. You were exactly right. That's, I don't like taking, treatments and shots and stuff. I've never had a flu shot, for example. But, when I heard, thanks to you, that this was not, in fact, a vaccine, but I was supposed to take a vaccine, it's like, end of discussion, not doing it. And I thankfully never had to get into a fight over it with my father. At one point he said, "Do I need to give you a lesson on vaccines, Dad?" No.
Did your father have the
absolutely
COVID vaccine? He did.
Absolutely. Even my brother had to get it to be at Morgan. And the argument he was using with me is, he said, what if you get into an accident and they take you to the hospital? Don't you want to be vaccinated beforehand? I said, actually, I don't want to have an accident. And I don't want to go to the hospital.
Exactly. Yeah, the whole thing. I'm not getting into that kind of hypothetical. What if a meteor hits the Earth and it's like, look.
What if you wake up in an alternative universe? I'll deal with that later.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the other thing is, Charles, they released these Senate reports on the Butler, PA assassination attempts. And, Trump had an interview last night, I think it was last night, with Laura Trump, and he said he is satisfied with this investigation into Butler, PA. And basically these reports came out today. I mean, it's like you don't have to be a genius to come to this conclusion that it was a catastrophic failure, but their solution is that they need, more fused intelligence and better surveillance and, AI and everything. So yeah, it's just going to be more money. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So back on why would Trump be doing this? The best analysis that I've seen, it may not be accurate, is that to get the big, beautiful bill across the line, he had to give up on some key issues. And that may be true. That could well be true, particularly when you think about Susie Wiles being a lobbyist. So maybe that's true. Maybe, one of the things, he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. He's trying like hell to get the thing sorted in Ukraine, peace in the Middle East. Is it a coincidence that the report on Epstein is leaked or sent out Sunday before Bibi Netanyahu nominates Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize in the Oval Office? I mean, is that a coincidence or not? I think maybe not. Maybe Trump was basically told, look, you may not like this, but it's a fact of life. And there's a lot of people, a lot of Republicans, a lot of Democrats, a lot of independents, a lot of powerful donors who would be in deep shit if we tell the truth about Epstein. So we're not going to. and you're just going to suck it up. I mean, it could be that something like that happened. And that's when that's like when Samson cuts his hair off. It doesn't work anymore. You can't go swinging around with Tarzan with short hair.
Well, and I mean, that's just it. It's interesting that this all happens in such close proximity to the anniversary of the assassination attempt, because it's like, look, however powerful you think you are, we could put a bullet there and that's the end of it. But speaking of the end of it, Charles, we're about to make our way over to the First Amendment Forum. People can join us on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, on subscribestar.com, on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. There's a lot more to talk about here. And thanks for tuning in, everybody.